Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report, the first podcast to bring you the local fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. I'm Butch Theory, and I'm joined today with my trusty co-host, Captain Joe Baya. How we doing today, Joe?
I am loving the temperature swing myself. I know some people don't like it, man, but me personally, we don't get enough cold weather. And I think when I dropped my son off at daycare yesterday, it was 76 degrees, and when I picked him up, it was 46. So I'm loving it, man. How about you?
I also love it. A little bit windy for my taste yesterday on the river here. It was pretty blustery, but man, I love it. Yeah, same here. Monday afternoon, I was getting some last-minute yard work before the Arctic blast done in a tank top, shorts, soaking wet with sweat. And then you wake up the next day and it's 30.
that north wind have a lot of water pushed out of the river?
Yeah, it sucked it all out of here.
How's the water conditions, man? I know all these local rains had you kind of stained up. You seen any flush with that strong north wind? Usually kind of pushes a lot of water out. I wonder if it's flushed that river out at all with the tide.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what the water looks like in the lights tonight, because last night it was definitely better than the night before. There was no water in here yesterday, and this morning it seemed to be a little kind of a southeast wind. It kind of blew some more water back up in here this morning and most of today. So I'll be curious to see if it's been replenished with fresher water or clear water rather.
Here we are, Veterans Day week. That's always been a good week for you and I, fishing Fowl River. And, number one, I want to say thank you to our veterans. That's number one on my mind. Number two on my mind, however, is I'm ready to get in that river and smash some trout. I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving. You and I we got a date with some speckled trout coming up. So hopefully we can find some fish. But let's find out what this big temperature swing is doing onshore. Where are we headed? Who are we talking to?
We're going to head on down to the Gulf State Park Pier, the Gulf State beaches, wherever Mr. David Thornton's been doing the Pier Pounder. All right, Mr. David, president of the ACFA. We haven't talked about the ACFA in a while. What's been going on, Mr. David?
Well, we finally had a break in the weather, and we were able to get our October tournament in last weekend in this past weekend in November. Had beautiful weather and had pretty good turnout. Of course, it's hard when you're competing with college football to get people to come out. Plus, a lot of folks are, gearing up towards hunting and stuff. So there's a lot of distractions. But the people that were there had a great time. The fishing was pretty good, it seemed like. And the results that we saw, some nice redfish come in, a couple of good speckled trout, a couple of sheephead. In fact, we had a live sheephead that we donated to the ecology lab at Dauphin Island Sea Lab. This young lady Merritt McCall is doing some research on sheep's head, trying to see if they can get them geared up to eating crabs that predate on oysters to help the oyster industry. So the sheep's head maybe can help out the situation with not so many oysters right now.
Wow.
So there's a lot of things
concept.
ACFA likes getting involved in things like this. We're going to try and push the tagging programs a little more next year. Of course, with the changes with speckled trout and flounder, flounder was a closed category, and usually in the fall, had we had the tournament in October like we originally planned, we would have been able to include flounder. But since flounder is closed for the month of November, we had to preclude that. And we'll just pick that up next year and see where it brings us.
Well,
so hopefully there'll be more flounder out there,
that's what I was just
in the
about
years
to
to come.
Hopefully that's a good thing for our fishery, and we'll see the results next year.
Yeah, I'm sure that, the rank and file recreational anglers don't matter a little sacrifice, for the good of the resource. I think everybody feels that way too, Butch. Yeah.
Yes, sir. For sure.
Well, I don't know, David. I mean, like the fact that I can't fish for flounder in November, I mean, that has to mean at least one or maybe even two flounder are not going to die. So
probably not.
Well,
that may be a little generous. That's the 5-year average anyway.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah, me, it would be about 1 in 5 years, I think.
Right.
Yeah, me too.
They're hard to target sometimes.
Y'all, ACFA be kind of wrapping things up though. What do you guys have for an end of the year gala?
There's an awards banquet December 6th, and everybody that's an ACFA member, including our sponsors, are invited, and that's part of the membership for the year, $50 membership for a year. And we have good food at all the weigh-ins. And we also have a banquet for the awards that night. And anybody that's a member can bring their family and they can come and eat for free with the rest of us. So, it's a good deal. It's going to be Friday, December 6th at Moe's, the same place where we meet at.
Well,
so we're looking forward to that.
I don't know about you guys, but the last time I fed my family for less than $50 for a night out was like not in recent memory. So
yeah.
A $50 membership is worth it just for the banquet alone. So
absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, and it won't be pizzas or beer either. I mean, the pizzas or
I was about to say, you just disqualified me.
Yeah.
Let's get into that onshore report, David. I know you kind of stretched your legs a little bit, came over to the dark side, did a little onshore surf fishing at Dolphin Island. How'd that go this week?
It was a lot of fun. We had a nice afternoon looking at the conditions, and I could see that the cool breeze was going to die off a little bit. And a nice sunny afternoon, and we were able to walk out on the spit and even do some wade fishing. The water was in the low 70s, and we were able to, get out and kind of explore some areas that we couldn't quite reach from the beach except with the bigger outfits. And all we were catching mostly was whiting. So we decided, well, we'll target in on them, and we waded out on the point a little bit where we could reach a deeper trough where the whiting were. And, caught a bunch of fish. We probably caught over 30 fish, but 9 different species. My grandson was just having a ball because he was, it's like, what's going to bite next? It doesn't take a lot to keep the kids happy. And he was really tickled. We had more than enough for a good fish fry the next day. And he was just so proud, that he had caught most of those fish that we were having for lunch the next day.
That's awesome. That's how you hook them, man. That's how you get them. Just love it. Their whole life is taking them out to do things where they're the shining star. And that's, I know people did that with me when I was younger, and they really made me the center of attention when it came to the fishing trip. And
we still have to do that for you, Joe.
Yeah. I mean, if I don't get that now, I even get a little upset, but it really did. It really did make a difference.
Obviously, yeah.
David,
that's a good thing. Yeah.
Let me ask you about the spit, as you put it. For folks that don't know, we get a lot of questions about surf fishing Dolphin Island. What is the spit? How do folks get to it if they want to try fishing?
Yeah, about a little over 10 years ago, Pelican Island joined to Dolphin Island right there at the Dolphin Island Pier, and it left the pier high and dry. In fact, I took pictures. There's a pine tree growing next to the. Yeah, cool. I mean, there's a 7-foot pine tree next to the pier house, and 12 years ago at the same spot, people were catching flounder and speckled trout. I mean, it's just it's amazing the way that things progress in nature. And who's to say, in another 10 years we may be catching fish there again? I sure hope so.
Yep. Very possible.
But it's a very popular walk area. People go out there to watch the sunset. You can just stroll out on the pier. You can take a cart out on the beach and walk 1.5 miles to the end if you want to. And it's this time of year, there's no fee. During the summer, there's just a nominal $5 parking fee. And you can have all that area to explore. There's a lot of points and sandbars and drop-offs that are real fishy, and you just got to have, the ability to walk a bit and don't mind to do some hiking and stuff. But it's a great place. Birders love it. People just to go watch the sunset. And, of course, the fishermen, at times the fishing can be pretty good out there.
Let me ask you this. We get a lot of questions from anglers looking for, quote-unquote, search baits, prospecting lures, so to speak, mostly on the inshore side. They want to know if they're trying to find fish, how do they rig, how do they work the bait, what's their kind of game plan. In the surf, if you don't want to put set rigs out, if you don't want to set up rod holders and put your rods and kind of relax, and you wanted to go to somewhere like the Spit on Dolphin Island and and stay on the move until you found fish, what would you do? What would be your plan for that?
Yeah, typically, like in the warmer months, if you're especially going to target speckled trout and redfish kind of stuff, in the mornings, I start out with just a topwater tied on, and I'll have that rod in my hand. And if I see anything, mullet swirling, birds diving, anything that would indicate maybe or just seeing a nice pocket along the beach, that might be a nice place that's holding some fish, I'll take a few casts there and then, keep venturing on further out. And you can also do the same thing once the sun gets up. You can go to a subsurface lure, something like in the fall, a lot of people like a silver spoon, about 3/4 ounce, is real effective, and it casts great. You can get a long cast with it. But getting back to the hard baits, the Meridyne is a very good lure out there. I've had real good luck with the sinking Meridyne because you're fishing more of the water column instead of just that top water or the first foot or something like that. You can let it drop on down, and in those 4 to 6 foot pockets, sometimes if the fish are deeper and the water's fairly clear, you can, work it 3-dimensionally. And it's a great locator bait for that kind of fishing like you're talking about. Now,
Excellent.
This time of year, there's not near as much. The specks are up in the bay and in the rivers. The redfish the slot reds aren't as numerous as they were, say, in October. But you can still locate fish either by dragging a gulp shrimp along the bottom, or I like to throw what's called a goofy jig, or Doc's goofy jig, or
banana jig.
It's a banana jig with a teaser on it. So it's a Florida lure actually made for pompano fishing, and you can put a little strip of Fishbites on there and just drag it along the bottom, and it's a great locator to find those schools of whiting during the late fall like this.
Describe to me how you work that bait. I've got several of the Doc's goofy jigs, and I'm obviously doing it wrong. So what do you do? You mentioned dragging it along the bottom, and that's not how I'm working it. So tell me what you do.
Yeah, a lot of people try to work it like a conventional pompano jig where you're popping it up off the bottom. Mm-hmm. And that works sometimes, but when the fish start slowing down, which they typically do this time of year, the water temperature is going to probably dip below 70 now, and that's going to really slow things down. So these whiting that have been actively pursuing bait, and pompano are going to slow down a bit, and they're looking for easy prey. And this jig just kind of dragging it along the bottom. And you know how when you look at the bottom, it's not perfectly smooth. The sandy bottom has these little ripples in it that have kind of a wave effect. And when you just reel that lure over it, it kind of catches in the crest of one dune, and then it pops loose, and it slips up to the next one and drops down in that little trough, and it comes up to the next one and kind of grabs. So just a slow, gradual retrieve where you're just kind of maybe twitching the rod tip a little bit can be very effective in getting these kind of lethargic fish fired up a little bit on this artificial presentation. And, if you, like you're saying, if you don't want to spend the time of soaking a set rig and just sitting and waiting for a bite to come along, you can move that bait like that. I like to put out a set rig, and then I'll go use that as my prospecting lure to locate where some more fish are, or where a better concentration may be.
I like that. That's a good plan. Excellent. So sounds like a good variety of fish in the surf. And it's good to hear you made it over to Dolphin Island way. We kind of don't get to talk about it as much, but the surf fishing there can be just as good as what you see in Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, Perdido.
Yeah, sometimes even better. Yeah, it certainly doesn't get the pressure that Orange Beach does. It's more like, the undeveloped areas in around Fort Morgan Peninsula that aren't nearly as populated as Gulf Shores and Orange Beach are.
All right, David. Well, that brings us to this week's onshore tip, and it's brought to us by KillerDock. The guys over at KillerDock have been working hard, and today we're going to profile another common form of dock dysfunction. This one's known as dirty dock. Have you guys ever cleaned up a nice mess of fish and then watched your wife's face in disgust when she sees your dirty dock as a result? It's happened to all of us who are cleaning fish on old wooden fish cleaning tables that don't slope towards the water. You guys need dock enhancement. KillerDock fish cleaning stations are marine-grade aluminum coated with a ceramic finish that makes cleaning your dirty dock a cinch. The scales and slime drain directly into the water, through the legs, or through the slots. You choose the style. Check out the best fish cleaning stations known to mankind at KillerDock.com.
Still love mine. I'd waxed it a couple days ago.
You waxed your
That's
dirty
awesome.
dock or the KillerDock?
Beautiful, man. Well, I don't have a dirty dock any longer because I've had dock enhancement.
I see.
Yeah.
Well,
I just feel like it's like a masterpiece. I just have to clean it every time I clean my boat. Is that weird?
I don't know. Maybe a little bit, Butch. It might be just slightly.
That's almost on the edge there, isn't it?
Hey, whatever. Y'all do you, I'll do me.
David, what do you think of the tip, man? What's speaking to you this week?
Really, the water temperature change is going to be big. You know, we've had like the first freeze in the area for the year, and that has really going to drop the water temperature. Once the water tips below 70 degrees, everything inshore changes. And that's especially prevalent like for pier fishing, shore fishing, where, you know, you're pretty much restricted to that first 100 yards where the water is relatively shallow. So it cools off faster. You know, the good side is it also warms up faster. So if we do get a warm spell on the backside of this, often that area can really chirk up. You know, while some of these other areas where the water's deeper, the fish may be, you know, still in that lethargic stage because of the cooler water temperature. But, you know, this is a good time of the year to start looking for sheep's head at the state pier, at the pass at Perdido Pass. Even Fort Gaines is probably holding some.
I've been seeing them catch a ton over at Cedar Point.
Yes. Yeah. And those are the fish that'll probably start moving off because those flats are going to cool off pretty quick and they're going to slip off into some deeper water, or at least where they have some deeper access.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that's interesting because I tend to think, you know, when it starts getting really cold, like, you know, we had some below freezing temperatures this week, and that's when I really my brain starts to turn off of quote unquote salt water. I still am thinking about the brackish water, but not as much the salt water. But what you're saying is it's not slowing down necessarily at all. You really just got to keep getting out there. And that's interesting that you said,
yes,
understood you correctly. You said that it can warm up faster as well.
Right, because it's shallower. You know, the surf zone can warm up if you have just a 3 or 4 day period where the air temperature is getting back in the upper 60s and near 70. And you got good sunlight, that surf zone warms back up, especially if you get a good bait like ghost shrimp or some good fresh dead shrimp. Those fish will be actively in that zone feeding. And, you know, you get the right conditions. A lot of times people overlook the tendency is to want to go first thing in the morning, but the sun in the afternoon is coincidental. The sun warming the water up is coincidental with the tide coming in, usually this time of year, November and December. A lot of times the lowest tide is like middle morning, midday, and by 3 or 4 in the afternoon, the tide is starting to come in and those nearshore waters are warming back up pretty good. And the better bite is right before dark instead of right before after sunrise.
Interesting. Anytime you tell me that I get to sleep in, you get extra points. So
that's right.
All right.
You get an A- for today, David.
Well,
when I discovered that, it made my life easier because it's not easy. You know what it's like when you get up on a cold morning and have to face that. Oh, yeah. Especially like going out on the pier and the prospect of that breeze blowing through every, you know, crease in your clothes.
That's right.
And finding your skin. It'll wear you out in a hurry.
For sure. All right, David. Well, man, thanks for joining us again today. That was a great report. And we sure love having you on. As always, if folks want to get in touch with you and put together a beach fishing trip or a pier fishing trip, whether on Dolphin Island or Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, Gulf State Park Pier, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, if they just type in pierpounder.com, that'll take them to my Facebook page, and it's got pricing information and contact information to get a hold of me.
Excellent.
And also I'm on GulfShoresPierFishing.com, and or through the ACFA, they can reach me there as well.
All right, David. We'll talk to you again soon, buddy.
Okay. I appreciate it. Always good talking to y'all. It's a lot of fun.
Always good to hear from the old Pier Pounder, Joe.
Love that guy, man.
I'm not going to call you out, but I heard a little during that Mr. David segment there. What you got over there?
This is a Ghost Crab Pilsner put out by Idle Hounds Brewing Company. I like to keep my beers themed. When I'm recording the Saltwater Fishing Report, I like to have, you see the little ghost crabs out there dancing around on the beach when you're surf fishing.
Seems very applicable.
Just felt right. And it's a delicious beer, true to its bohemian style. Crisp and refreshing. Grab a Ghost Crab Pilsner. It's a sipper for any session. I love it. What about you? What you got?
I like to drink a real man's beer. I got a Abita Andigator.
Why does it always got to come back to why do you always have to degrade me on here?
Well, you got to be a sissy beer.
See what I mean? There you go again.
I'm fired up about this next segment, Cap. Let's head offshore. We're gonna have somebody new on today. I'm excited to have him on. Captain Kyle Smith. He runs the Skin Deep Sport Fishing out of Orange Beach, Alabama. How we doing today, Kyle?
I'm doing good. Guys. How about y'all?
Awesome, man. Excited to have you on. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. No problem. Just trying to stay warm here at the house. It's a good afternoon and pretty cold out. Had a nice front come through last night. So, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, I heard before the front you guys got out and had a really good offshore trip. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, we got out there before the front, had 2 nice days. Ended up catching a few tuna, broke a few bigger ones off. Had 5 bites on blue marlin. Kept one glued up, had a double on for a little bit, and saw 2 more. So, and we caught a good swordfish that night drifting. So it was a good trip with some bad luck, but can't catch them all.
Kyle, I can tell you've caught some fish because if I had hooked 5 blue marlin, seen 5 blue marlin, I'd have a little bit more elevation in my voice. So you mentioned y'all broke off some bigger tuna. What size were the tunas y'all brought in?
We had 2, about 100. We broke one off about $1.70, and then we pulled the hooks on one next to the boat about $1.50. So both of them were on the leader. One just chewed through, I guess, eventually, and whatever it happens, can't catch them all.
What was the key to the tuna bite? Did you mentioned them breaking off? Sounds like maybe y'all were using lighter leader. What kind of fishing were you doing? Was it trolling, chunking, kite fishing?
No, we were mainly live baiting. Most of the time, if we're tuna fishing, if we're just tuna fishing, we're going to use anywhere from 60 to 100-pound leaders. Smaller tackle, smaller live baits. We have chumped before, but I think the key to success is matching the hatch. And, we were catching some on some hardtails, and we caught some on some bigger baits, trolling for blue marlin. That does happen. And, I think we were using 180 to 220 when we were live baiting with some of the bigger stuff, but I've seen them chew through 400. It's kind of a crazy thing, but it does happen.
Wow.
You guys around some rigs south of here, or?
Yes, sir. We were about 100 miles. Yes, sir. About 100 miles south. Had a drill ship down there, and it was pretty wide open. It was pretty good down there. A lot of fish, a lot of action. Water's pretty. Good current out of the east. You couldn't ask for a better day. You go out there wearing pants and a sweatshirt, and then by the middle of the day, you're in shorts and t-shirt, not sweating. Salon doors wide open. Not even running the ACs. It's that nice out right now.
You can't beat that, man. That's some of the best of the year when you can do that and beat the heat. Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me about these marlins, man. I'm not going to call you out, but what the hell happened? You only caught 1 of 5.
Yeah, that happens. It could have been worse.
That happened to me, Kyle. Never happened to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It stuff does happen. We the first fish, we hooked up. All these fish we caught. All the blues we hooked, the marlin we hooked were Monday. It was all before 12:30. The first one we hooked up on, little rat came up, tried to eat the bait, and couldn't eat it. Followed the bait all the way back to the boat when we were reeling and checking it. Had my mate Seth, who fed the fish, fed him perfect, came tight. Fish took off away from the boat, and we chased it down pretty good. We literally got maybe a 2 foot away from grabbing the leader. Fish came up and just spit the bait and the hook all up. And we had a few other mishaps. Had a pair come up, 1 ate. We pulled the hooks on that one too. After jumped, ran. I mean, did everything crazy. And the fish we actually caught came up and just, never sniffed it or nothing, just came up and, put a hole in the water, big around his cockpit. And I was pulling away from the fish. It was starting to jump towards us. And my mate was reeling in the other bait on the right rigger and literally had to swivel, I don't know, a foot away from the rod tip. And another one came up while we were hooked up to the fourth one and tried to eat that bait right behind the transom. And it was like Jurassic Park. It was pretty cool out there in the Gulf. It was a cool trip. There's no doubt about it.
It gets me fired up. I feel like I was there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We had a trip on the Escape booked at the end of October, and we didn't get to go, so I've been itching to go. I hate it. Sounds like it's going on.
Oh, yeah. And this time of year, the fall is it's my favorite time. It kind of interferes with a little bit of hunting that I like to do, but, when the fishing's this good, it's hard not to pass up. So,
yeah, for sure.
What about swordfish?
The swordfish, man, we just, we were out there. Well, we like to chunk at night sometimes for tuna, but, chunking can be so hit or miss, especially at night. So we just decided we're going to do a drift and then see what happens. We put a mahi belly out and a tuna belly out and put one at 450, one at 300. And the deep bait got hit, I think, within an hour and a half of us putting the baits out. And 30 minutes later, we brought that one in the boat. It was about 150 pounders, a good, nice swordfish.
That's about perfect
quality swordfish. Yeah, perfect size. Not too big that it'll, kick your butt for 3-4 hours, but just perfect size. Yeah.
A lot of fun.
Sounds like an awesome trip.
Yeah, it was a great trip. We had a good time. Boss man had a great time. Our guests had a great time. So we had a good, it was a good trip, but when we were 0 for 3 by 10 o'clock in the morning, Monday on Blue Marlin, you just kind of look up in the sky and say, 0 for 3, holy cow. That's right. There's different words said, but,
Of course. Where about was blue water? Did you pay attention when you guys were cruising out? Is it pretty
yeah, it's actually the blue water's in real close, and there is a finger that comes off the river that's kind of towards Horn Mountain there, and south of that it blues back up. But the elbow and all that, all this stuff in tight is in very clean water. Really fishable water.
That's awesome, man. Well, this week we're gonna break you in right. You got the Hey Cap question this week. This week's Hey Cap question is brought to us by Foster Contracting. The recent thunderstorms that have been producing wind and hail in the area, and the 50-mile-an-hour winds that we had 2 nights ago, goodness gracious, may have damaged your home's roof. The certified roofing pros at Foster Contracting offer free roof inspections, and if your roof has received damage, most homeowners will have little or no cost out of pocket when going through your insurance. If you're looking for quality construction with a dependable, licensed, and certified fortified roofing professional, give the Fortified Roofing Pros a call at 251-973-9999. They're a family-owned business that is big enough to get the job done, but small enough to care. Remember to support the local businesses that make your local podcast possible each week, and check them out at fortifiedroofingpros.com. Luke Thompson asks, hey, Cap, when is the best time of year to charter a blue water fishing trip? When does the bite and the weather typically line up the best?
Weather.
What's your favorite time of year to fish, basically?
Honestly, you can fish around the hurricane, so I like the fall. Early fall, September and October. As long as there's no storms coming in, and I think that's the best time. I also do like early summer, May and June. That's another good time of the year. But you still have some late fronts coming down and, causing a little bit of wind. But for fishing, blue water, and weather, definitely early fall. It's second to none. You can't beat it.
I think, I definitely agree with you on the fishing. And it seems like for me personally, I just deal with having to cancel a trip. Seems like when we put our trips together, either spring or fall, in that transitional period, as we're either going spring to summer or summer to fall, we probably cancel 1 out of every 4 trips, I would say.
That's right.
And I'm okay with that because I so much more enjoy being out there when it's a little bit cooler. And to me, the fishing is enough better that it's worth it to me. And, the other thing is, if you're coming down and you cancel, this happened to us just the other week. We canceled, and guess what? I went deer hunting that weekend. So it wasn't like it was a total loss. I was able to kind of salvage that weekend. In the summertime, if you're not fishing, that's pretty much it. So,
that's right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
I very much agree with you. Well, Kyle, tell us a little bit about the boat you're running, man. What is the Skin Deep?
It's a 2000 model, 63-foot Ricky Scarborough. We got a Capt 3412Es. which are 1,400 horsepower each. And it's a great boat, great layout boat. I mean, it's the perfect fishing boat for the Gulf. It's a great boat.
I love those.
Ride's great. Yeah.
I love them. They're fine.
And
I love that Skin Deep too.
Yeah, it's a great boat. And we got spoiled this past February. The boss put a Seakeeper in, and I tell you what, it makes a world of difference. Go out there and don't have to rock and roll up and down. I mean, it's pretty intense.
We were talking with the guys at Seakeeper at a recent at the Alabama Deep Sea Fishing Rodeo, and I was amazed at the technology. You know, it's one of those things where you say, hadn't needed that before, until you step on a boat that's got one. And I mean, you could be in 4-foot seas and set a beer on the gunnel. I mean, it was.
Oh yeah,
it was
absolutely.
amazing.
I mean,
amazing.
When we went to bed, or when we were sword fishing that night, you know, it was pretty Sunday afternoon and into the night, and about 3 a.m, it started picking up and getting pretty rough, and we were just still in side sea. I mean, just drifting our sword baits after we'd already caught that one. We were still fishing, and my boss woke up and he's like, "Holy cow, I didn't know it was this rough out."
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Like,
I've never been on a bigger
bump.
boat with one. Actually, the only boat I've ever been on one was that demo boat at the Deep Sea.
I would love to see it on a 63 and feel that difference. I bet it's unbelievable. I like sleep, and sleep's good.
Oh yeah, it's unreal. It doesn't make sense how awesome it is. I mean, it's pretty incredible.
I think that
like they got it figured out.
Devin has 2 of them.
I think he's got 2 9s. Yeah, he's got 2 9s. It's crazy though.
Kyle, did you guys run into any wahoo?
No, sir, we did not. We didn't really do a whole lot of trolling. Actually, but like a month ago, though, we were live baiting out there a little bit further to the west and caught a really nice wahoo live baiting, about 60 or 70 pounds.
Really?
Okay.
So, but I've heard there's a few around, but I think they're a little closer inshore. I haven't heard of any offshore in a while, but a few more cold fronts coming. I think those we dialed in pretty good. So hopefully.
Yep. Heck yeah, man. Well, we really appreciate you being on, Kyle, and I hope to get you in the rotation, man.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we do a lot of fishing, so if I can help y'all out, anytime, Well,
thanks, man. Be safe out there. We will be talking to you again soon, buddy. So keep whacking them.
Yes, sir. We'll do. Y'all be good, all right? And try to stay warm.
That's a pretty good offshore report there, Butch.
Fires me up.
Butch, I got to ask you a question.
Okay.
Do you know where the term old salt comes from?
I just picture an old, gray-haired man that crushes fish.
I mean, I think it's one of those things where you could make up your own story about, but according to Wikipedia, I got Wikipedia pulled up here. It says, an old salt is an old sailor or teller of sea stories. Much of the history and traditions of mariners are passed down from generation to generation by these sea stories, as told and retold by old salts. Here's the important part. Sea stories may be truthful, half-truths, or falsehoods. However, they always enhance the reputations of sailors. So,
where are you going with this?
We got an old salt on with us today.
Oh, yeah?
I had a feeling that was coming.
I did too.
So if you put like in the dictionary like a second description in Wikipedia, there would be just a picture of me up there. Is that what you're saying?
Mississippi Sound.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all right. I'll take an old salt as a compliment, I guess.
That's right.
I've been called, hey, Butch, I've been called a lot worse. Especially by you and by have both called me worse. So
well, for those that don't know, this week's inshore report is coming to us from Captain Bobby Abruscato. How you doing, Bobby?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Stayed bundled up here the last couple of days, boys. I'm telling you, it was definitely interesting.
Did you have some ice crystals in your mustache this morning?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I would have if I'd have went out on the water. It was brutal. I actually took a couple of days off. I kind of toyed with the idea of going this morning, but it was. I actually got up, had everything ready to go, and I just made my mind up if the wind was. I can handle the 27 or 28 degrees. I can handle that. I can't handle 27 or 28 degrees with a 20-knot wind. That's when it just gets too. That's just when it's brutal. I love those. I love those real cold still mornings. That's magic a lot of times this time of year. But man, when it blows 20, there's so few places that you can get to where you can get out of it and just halfway be effective, So anyway, got up, looked at the weather, and put the coffee on. Pushed out. Basically,
that's a good call. It was tough on the water this morning.
It was tough.
Well, Bobby, pre-front, what was the pattern?
Well, the good news is before we even get to the pattern, is the fishing period has really been good just since it's been cooling off. And we probably talked about this the last time I was on with you guys, but we had that stretch where it was a little tough, when it got so hot. But man, in the back of your mind, you can't help but think, well, I hope everything's all right. Well, I got the good news to report that everything's good and well. Been fishing, been catching some fish early in the morning on top water, not really killing them, but on top water. But you guys know this, you can't go out there in the spring and the fall, particularly early in the morning, especially this little cloud cover, not throw the top water a little bit, and have caught some really nice fish on it. It hadn't been lasting too long, and then just going to the popping corks with voodoos and or gulps, depending on what I'm doing, and having some really good trips. I mean, really, really impressive size and numbers of fish in several different areas around, several different places around the area. So, not just one small school of fish. It seems to be good, in a number of places. We had a big multi-boat trip. I can't remember what day it was, last week one day, and I think they hired, 8 or 10 boats or something, and everybody had really good trips, when you get 8 boats together, or a number of boats like that, somebody's going to have, a better day than others. Yeah, a lot of variables, but everybody had good, short day, 3-4 hour trip, and everybody had, big numbers of fish. I had a number of, triple digit days in a row, over the last week or so, big numbers of fish. And then, depending on the area, some of the quality's a little better in some areas than others. But anyway, Joe, to answer your question, it's been a popping cork deal for me. And that's what most of us caught our fish on that big group trip we had. So that's kind of been the deal. And of course, with the weather we've just had come through here, that's all going to be changing.
Bobby, talking about top water, do you do anything different in the fall, especially fishing tidal rivers, the Delta, as the fish transition into these areas away from the coast? Do you change your top water at all? I'm specifically meaning, the size, or do you do anything different?
I don't change it based on the time of the year, but I do change the lure. I change the lure based on the water conditions. If you get, and it kind of makes sense if you think about it, but if you get these really slick days, or if you're fishing a really protected area where the water's really slick, I'll downsize the bait. I've gotten where I like that little skitter V. I used to use the little top pup when it got, when it was really calm, but I like that little skitter V that came out a few years ago when it gets really calm. And if you're fishing kind of what I consider kind of like a normal chopper, there's a little ruffle on the water, maybe up to a 2 or 3 or 4 inch chop. I like the regular skitter walk are my 2 go-tos. And then in the event that I do, for some reason, want to fish, some rougher water with top water, I usually go to a bigger, louder bait. So basically, the rougher the water is, the bigger the bait I choose, and the noisier bait I choose. But as far as like the time of the year, I do that whether it's spring or winter or fall, whatever. That's what I do on them.
That's really interesting, and it's something I didn't even think of. And I've always wondered, why have a 3 treble hook top water versus a 2 treble hook top water? Why the different size and bait? While we're on that subject, I love that tip, by the way. I mean, just you're thinking about water condition. It does make perfect sense. When there's more commotion on the top of the water, you want a bigger bait so that it'll stir it up a little more when there's less.
Yep, and help the fish find it. I think that helps them a little bit more too. Actually finding the bait, too, along that. And I'll tell you something. If and you guys like to top water fish, if you do it, I'd highly recommend. If you're going to be top water fishing in the morning, because we're all inherently lazy when it comes to it, especially if we want to make that one more cast. But, if you have 2 rods, don't put the same lure on both rods. You know what I'm saying? Put if you're going to top water fish in the morning, put a small one on and a medium sized one on or something like that, and that way you can quickly, and the fish will tell you pretty quick, you'll notice a lot of times if there's surface activity and you're on a good top water condition day, with me meaning early morning or late evening or cloud cover, especially if there's a little bit of wind, they'll let you know pretty quick. It's pretty amazing the difference sometimes just by changing that lure. But if you'll have those, if you do have the opportunity to bring 2 rods, with topwater lures on, that's the way I like to do it. I like to have 2 different. And one of the luxuries of having extra people on the boat is I can have somebody already doing that for me, so I got something fishing right next to me, and then you'll notice, and sometimes it doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but there's more often than not, there's going to be a big difference in the number of bites you get.
I got a confession to make.
Uh-oh.
I'm terrible at topwater fishing.
Wait, are you recording? Are we still recording right now?
Oh yeah, we are 100% recording right now.
Hold on to this one, man. Don't lose this one. Bush is making a confession.
I'm terrible at topwater fishing. I can't figure it out.
You feel like other people didn't know this?
I don't know. I don't care. This is a personal battle that I'm dealing with here. I mean, do you like to 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 twitch? Do you walk the dog? What's your best method?
Mine is like walk the dog, and when I'm taking someone that's not, hasn't had the experience of doing it, I like hop it about 6 or 7 times with that walk the dog technique, and then just kill it. I tell them, go ahead and work your stop into it. But so hop, 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 and then stop it for a 1 or 2 count, and then start that over again. And then you can play around a little bit with that cadence too. That's another thing too that'll change sometimes is, if you get on there and sometimes you might notice that, if you're just hopping like hop, 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 that's the way they want it. And then sometimes, they want it, I fish with, I don't do it a lot. I guess I'm kind of right in the middle. My natural cadence of walking it is kind of probably about somewhere in the middle, but I've taken bass fishermen, and they're notorious for saying that thing sounds like a dang machine gun coming across the water. Sometimes it works, but I would hop it 5 or 6 times and then pause it and pay attention a lot of times when you get the strike. Sometimes they want it moving. Sometimes they want it. You'll see that you'll get your strike sometimes after you've stopped it right when you start to work it again, and you'll start to find out, well, I want to make dang sure I'm working that pause in there, So you just kind of got to play around with those kind of things. And it varies from day to day. It varies from hour to hour sometimes, You just kind of have to play around with that a little bit. But once you get good at it, and you caught fish on top water, so you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
It's about as exciting a way as to catch a fish as there is,
I just need to do it more, truthfully.
You do, and that's what will happen. I think what happens is the more you do it, the better you get at it. The better you get at it, the more fish you catch, and therefore you enjoy it more, which causes you to do it more. So it all kind of builds on itself,
Sure.
I'm
Bobby,
not way about jig fishing. Butch, when we go grub fishing, my clients outfish me bad. I'm just terrible at that. And I can tell them what to do, but I can't do it very well. And I'll get novices on there a lot of times out fishing because I tend to fish too fast. So I have to make myself learn to grub fish better than I do because I spend so much time in shallow water where I don't do a lot of grub fishing.
Sure.
I'm just not real good at it. I can tell them what to do. I just don't do it real well myself.
So what you're saying is when it comes to jig fishing, you're kind of like a fat dietitian.
What is that? Yeah,
you can tell people what to eat. You can tell people what to eat, but you're not doing it yourself.
Do as I do, and not what I say.
It took me a second. It took me a second to catch on. I like that.
Hey,
I always tell my.
I think a couple levels above you guys most of the time.
That ain't hard to do. That ain't real hard to do. I wouldn't be bragging about that deal.
Bobby, you mentioned topwater and you mentioned popping corks, but we hadn't talked much about location. So, Butch and I were talking earlier in the show. Fowl River, where he lives, is still pretty tannic, still pretty stained up. Where are you finding fish, and where do you think most folks will find fish over the weekend?
They're going to be in the tidal rivers. That's where they're going to be the rest of the winter, and that's where I'm catching them. There's still some places where they're kind of at this trend. I think by this, after this weather, now they're all pretty well have moved into the rivers. But all of the rivers right now are, surrounding, adjacent to the bay, just depending on the condition of the water, like you were just talking about. Some rivers, fowl, for example, in Bilobattery are two that just don't clear up as quickly as some of the other rivers in the area, as well as the Delta. It's cleared up really well. If you keep up with the water levels, a barometer for the water levels, for me, is Berry Steam Plant. I think it's down to like 2 feet or something right now, which is incredibly low. So the water up there is fine. So that's where you'll want to be. If you're trout fishing, that's where you're going to want to be for the next several months. 4 or 5 months anyway. 4 months anyway.
You seen any slick? Slick lure action?
I hope to, starting tomorrow, which will be Thursday. And we were talking just a minute ago, and I just kind of redid a lot of my rods just because I'm betting that after this super cold weather that we've had the last couple nights, or certainly last night, you're going to see this move from surface activity and shrimp more towards a finfish bite. Fortunately, I got a couple guys I got tomorrow. I've already told me they wanted to target bigger fish, which really excited me. They said they'd been with me before and caught a bunch of fish, but they said they really want to target some bigger fish. So I'm really excited about it because we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's going to work. I'm pretty confident it's going to work, but I still got a few popping corks tied on just in case,
Always.
Because sometimes, as you guys well know, you guys have been fishing long enough to know them fish don't always read the book, if you know what I mean.
Right.
And I've also taken a lot of folks fishing who really wanted to target the big ones until we didn't catch any, and then they were pretty happy to just catch anything. So
that's right.
That's what happens. That's exactly what happens. We all do it, man. I hear it all the time, and usually my standard reaction is, Jeff, I'll give you half an hour and you'll be over that. You'll be ready to just go catch some fish. So that's when I do what I call, in case of emergency, break glass and break out the popping corks, So you're going to be able to catch some fish that way, So, but
Bobby, the bait situation, are we in good shape? Are plenty of shrimp to be had at most of the bait shops, or are they even necessary?
Let me answer your second question first. They're not necessary. They are helpful if you can get them and you can get into a good current situation where you're getting some nice drifts with the bait. They'll help. As far as being necessary, whether or not you're going to go or not, whether you get live shrimp, I would definitely still go if you can get your hands on them. I think you'll start to see some of that start to change too with this colder weather, because I think that gets some of the shrimp out of here. But there were so many shrimp. These guys that were catching them were just going on and on about how many shrimp there were. So I think it's not going to be an overnight thing where the shrimp disappear. I think they're going to be around for a while, but I would highly recommend with weather changes. The other thing that hurts those guys is they can't get out to get the bait, and they kind of try and stay ahead of the crowds. But, you get a couple days where they can't get out and get bait. They get behind. And so I would, if you want to use bait, I would call around before you plan your trip. You might have to get them the night before, carry a little aerator bucket or something with you to go get them before you actually go fishing.
All right, Bobby. Well, that brings us to this week's inshore tip. It's brought to us by Hilton's Offshore Charts. The days of heading out and blindly looking for good fishing areas are pretty much over. Don't waste time and money or fuel searching for fish. You need the most recent, highest resolution images to not only know where to go, but where not to go. The knowledge provided by today's technology is critical when planning an offshore fishing trip. Make the choice that professional captains all over the Gulf make and choose Hilton's Real-Time Navigator. The easy-to-use interface and excellent customer service will have you on the fish every time you go. Check it out at hiltonsoffshore.com. Man, don't you wish there was a Hilton's real-time navigator for the inshore world?
Won't be too much longer, and they probably will be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Bobby, Butch hit on it a little bit, talking about slicks, but so what do you think the tip's going to be today?
Well, again, kind of touching on what we were talking about earlier, I think the tip, when you get these changes in the conditions and in the water temperature and that sort of thing, is I guess in one word is to be flexible. That's more than one word, but anyways, being flexible. Joe, you said you think above us. I'm saying
I'm going back. I'm going back to the old salt half truths and falsehoods. That's what I'm thinking about.
Anyway, when I was setting up for my trip, I'm going from kind of almost shorts fishing weather to coveralls and stuff fishing, and we've had 27-degree nights. I redid several of my rods, and I didn't have any, finfish imitations tied on at all, except for a topwater plug. And so everything I'm set up for tomorrow is got slicks. I got slicks tied on most of the rods, and of course, a few popping corks still on there because I don't know if they're going to totally abandon that. But I think the tip is, and then not just going from fall to winter or spring to summer, is you're going to have to, especially during these changing times, you got to be a little bit flexible and let the fish kind of tell you what they want. Don't go out there with all popping corks or all topwaters tied on. Don't catch any fish and give up, because this is the time of year where they're going to start making some changes changes. You need to be able to adapt to it. So, go out there and you're going to have to experiment with some things, grubs, slicks, even top waters on warmer days and that sort of thing until the fish tell you what they want. And then once they do, and you get into this pattern, which we're going to eventually be in if we're not already in it, you get into this wintertime pattern, it's going to be the same for a few months. As long as the water temperature gets down in the low 60s, that pattern that you establish is pretty well going to hold true. And you can be a little less flexible going into it for sure. But again, getting back to these changing times, that's when you really have to kind of play around with what you're doing, where you're throwing, what lures you're throwing, that sort of thing.
Bobby, I already know the answer to one of these questions, but what colors do you really like in the fall when you're fishing slicks? What are your go-to and why? Why do you choose those, or why do you feel like those are more effective in our system?
Well, my favorite color, the one that I use a majority of the time, the slick lure is I use so many of them. He actually named it after me. He tried to call it the Bobcat, but it was already a lure named that, so he calls it the B-Cat. But that's the pearl white with the chartreuse tail. I throw that probably 80% of the time. And the reason I like that is it matches up good to the watercolors of the tidal river systems that we're fishing when we're using that slick during the winter. And then, then again in the spring, it just matches up good to the watercolors. That pearl, I think, kind of shows up from a little bit further away. And that lure doesn't make a lot of noise. Although it displaces a lot of water, it doesn't make a lot of noise. So you really have to count on that fish really being able to see that from a little bit further away. And that's why I'm confident in those two brighter colors, the pearl white with the chartreuse tail. And then the other one that I throw, quite a bit is a pink with the chartreuse tail. And believe it or not, when I first saw that pink, I said, that's going to be an off-color water lure, but it really has gotten where it works well in the clear and the tannic water, like foul, Butch, the way foul stays when we've had early rain like we've had. That pink, for some reason, really, really works well in a tannic water situation. Fish and magnolia get that way. Bayou La Battery gets that way. Fowl, of course, gets that way. And so usually I'll leave and I'll have, 2 or 3 pearl and chartreuse tied on, and then maybe 1 pink and chartreuse. And those are kind of the two that I carry that I use the majority of the time.
Bobby, I'm thinking back to the Hey Cap question we had for you the last time you were on. I believe it was Daniel Tidwell was asking us about fishing the Choctawhatchee Bay system where the water's super clear over in that area. For the guys that are listening that like to fish coastal panhandle of Florida, the Emerald Coast, water over there is way, way more clear than what we see here. If you were going into that fishery and wanted to throw the slick, what color would you choose for those super gin clear water?
I would go to like more of the. If you look on his website, he's got a great selection of colors for just about any water clarity. And so I would look at the colors. He calls one of them cool beans. It was almost a translucent kind of, cool beans.
I've smashed them.
Yeah, cool beans. Along that thing, and I'd probably abandon that chartreuse tail. He makes a lot of solid color lures, but you want to go with some. If I was over there, I would be throwing something a lot more subtle color, something, that looks a lot more like. You're going to have something that really looks like the prey because they're going to get a good look at it, So, like I said, that cool beans, and there's another one called, I think it's called green mullet to me. And then and then even on lower light conditions, that goblin color.
Old salt color, I think is what they called it.
Yeah, salt color, yeah. But anyway, so when you get in those clear watercolors, though, basically you want to get to a color that really looks a lot more like the fish that you're trying to imitate,
Okay.
Like I was talking about the water that we have here, you've never seen a pearl white mullet and you've never seen a pink mullet, I think if you start throwing those colors in that clear water down there, they're just going to run from it, So that's what I would do. I would pick those more, subtle or more natural looking colors.
I love it. Do you see the same thing out of redfish? You fished the redfish tour for a while. Are those fish are they similar to trout, or do they react different to colors?
Sometimes they do. Redfish to me is like a lot of the places, except for like South Florida when we've been down there. A lot of the places I've fished that we've had success. So I can't even speak to South Florida because we've really never done well down there. But from here west, we've had a lot of success from Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and down in Texas. And those fish there, they seem to react more to noise or vibration. So we're throwing spoons and top waters and spinner baits and that sort of thing. And so they're not, I don't know. Some people probably we don't dwell a whole lot on color as much with redfish is, trying to make some noise so the fish can pick up on it. So they're maybe more or less, they're not as shy as the trout are, especially in Louisiana. If you've been redfishing in Louisiana, those fish down there, and they are here too. You get around these fish here, especially in grass situations, they're pretty aggressive fish. So they're not going to shy away from anything. It's really more of a function of them seeing something that you throw. And so I'm not afraid to play around with something that makes some noise and don't dwell a whole lot on color.
Well, Bobby, as always, great report, man. We certainly enjoy hearing from you and sharing your knowledge with us and everybody that listens. You're a definite resource to all the anglers along the Alabama Gulf Coast, and we certainly appreciate it. For the folks,
well, you're welcome, man. I appreciate y'all having me on.
Yeah, man. Well, for the folks that are coming home for Christmas, maybe they're coming in from out of the area, coming home for Thanksgiving. I know you probably got some dates available, November, December, and they want to get up and go fishing with you. What's the best way for them to check out your calendar and see what your open dates are? A-Team
Fishing is the easiest one. That's my website, A-Team Fishing, all one word, just like the old Mr. T show. And there's got a contact us tab. You can hit us on that. We got a little form you can fill out and request the date or just give us a call there. And I always say I'll answer the phone, but I want to be Miss Kim will answer the phone and she'll get you fixed up.
That's who you want to talk to.
She don't want me. She wants me out fishing. She don't want me answering the phone.
That's right. Nobody wants to talk to you anyway, Bobby. So
that's exactly right.
All right, buddy. Well, thanks as always.
All right, guys. Y'all have a great weekend. Try to stay warm.
All right, Captain Bobby. You too. Keep whacking them. Man, that's another great report from Captain Bobby and another great Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report, man. It's a good week. Glad to see things are going a little better offshore. Hope they keep going.
Man, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't your dad say that one of his best blue water trips ever was, right there around Christmas, wasn't it?
Christmas time, yep.
You just never know, man.
Got to get out there.
Well, and that's the thing. You got to be sitting on go. And that was a good question this week about planning a trip, because that's one of the challenges of planning a trip is you really can't sit on go. But for the guys that can, just keep an eye on that weather, man. And when you see a pocket of good stuff, it doesn't matter if it's cold. Get out there and get them.
What'd you learn this week, brother?
Man, what I thought was interesting is that we talked with David Thornton, we talked with Bobby Abruscato, and both of those guys, essentially their tips were parallel to each other, and that's not rehearsed. That's asking two guys that have fished this area their whole lives and have seen it all, kind of seen it come and go. And what they both said in a nutshell was that this latest front is going to be the one that's going to transition things. David said, really slow it down. This is going to be the one to really slow it down. Bobby said, hey, he's cutting off the popping corks. He's going to the slick lures. That's what I learned, is that these really good fishermen that have fished many seasons, they are recognizing that this is going to be the one to really transition the fish and to be prepared for that.
Sure.
If it doesn't happen this week, it's going to happen.
It's going to happen next week.
Next week. So you might as well go ahead and go out there knowing that it's coming, and it may happen tomorrow. So be prepared.
We are being brought into that winter pattern with these strong cold fronts, specifically this one and the next one. So this weekend or the next, you think it's going to happen.
What about you? Were you listening to anybody? Did you learn anything?
I do. I always listen very intently. I thought it was really cool what Captain Bobby was saying about the topwater plugs and, what to fish on calm water versus a little bit choppier water. And I remember I learned from him, I don't remember what show it was a little while back, but whenever he was talking about topwater fishing, using a little bit bigger plug, but if fish are there and you're not getting the bites on a bigger plug, or you're missing some blow ups, go to a little bit smaller topwater. It's kind of the same deal. That was a really good point by him. And me, I've just always kind of thought like, oh, I guess they make smaller topwater lures because smaller fish or whatever.
There's smaller bait fish around. You want to try to match that. And that was a really cool thing I'd never thought of. And isn't that neat, man? How long do you think it took Bobby to learn that when it's calm and it's a still day, he's grabbing a smaller topwater? Because what would happen to me is I'd throw my normal topwater out there, wouldn't get a bite.
And wouldn't catch fish.
Oh, right. They're not biting topwater. And then, the 6 times a year that I get to go fishing or something, I'd never learned that lesson. And that's a really good point, man.
It is, man. That's the cool thing about this podcast. Compresses all that information over, however long he's been fishing into all these little tips and pearls of wisdom.
Yeah. at least since the late 20th century.
At least.
All right, buddy. Take us out of here.
All right, guys. So this is going to be another great Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report. You guys subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like us to email you the podcast each week, head over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/ASFR, and we'll send you the new show. Thanks for the Hey Capt question this week. He submitted that one to alabama@bestfishingreport.com. Make sure you send us an email, and we'll send you your Fishbites goodies. We still got some of those left, and you guys keep whacking them.
Is he going to get a tank top? Going to give him a tank top? Luke, let us know if you want a tank top, man.
Yeah, if he wants one, we'll give him one. Yeah, if he wants one, we'll give him one. And you guys stay tuned next week for another great Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report. Catch y'all then. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report has been brought to you by Coastal Conservation Association of Alabama. Check them out at ccaalabama.org. Also brought to you by Geico. Call Ron Davis, Geico agent, at 251-445-0053 or visit him online at geico.com/mobile-al.
And also brought to you by Daycool Heating and Air, your home performance specialist. Contact them at 251-260-3858 or check them out online at www.daycoolair.com. License number AL07028.
This week's Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by Angelo Depaola, the Coastal Connection with eXp Realty, your boating and beach property specialist. Check me out on Facebook at Angelo Depaola Realtor, the Coastal Connection, or call me direct at 850-287-3440.
And also Great Days Outdoors, the South's finest hunting and fishing magazine. Pick up your copy wherever magazines are sold or check them out at greatdaysoutdoors.com. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report has been brought to you by Fishbites. Check out their full line of freshwater, saltwater, tackle, and apparel at fishbites.com.